In our previous videos, we explored the concept of reasoning, comparing how it functions in the human brain, in LLMs, as well as the potential future in AGI. We examined the brain regions involved in reasoning and the complexities that set human intelligence apart from current AI systems. Today, we move on to the second key characteristic of human intelligence, namely decision making. Decision making is a core function of human intelligence, and it involves a complex network of different brain regions. In humans, decision making isn't just a matter of cold logic. It often requires emotional input, context awareness, and the ability to consider long-term consequences and values. This, in contrast to the way decision making works in current LLMs, which are based on statistical patterns only, as well as pre-programmed algorithms, but don't have the deeper cognitive and emotional processes involved in human decision making. Which particular brain regions are involved when we as humans go through the decision making process? There are approximately 6 identify different brain regions, one of which is the prefrontal cortex, more specifically dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, or DLPFC. It's a very critical area for executive functions such as planning, decision making, and problem solving. The PFC evaluates options, weighs different risks and rewards, and helps us make decisions based on long-term goals, hopefully. It's where cognitive control takes place, allowing individuals to override immediate impulses, hopefully, for better long-term outcomes. Another region is the orbital frontal cortex, or OFC, which is heavily involved in evaluating rewards and punishments. It helps humans assess the emotional and the social consequences of their decisions. When making decisions based on emotional or social factors, the OFC is activated, allowing individuals to make more nuanced decisions beyond just logic. The third brain region involved in decision making is amygdala. The amygdala plays a crucial role in processing emotion, especially fear and pleasure emotions. It helps humans assess emotional responses and make decisions that are influenced by emotional factors. For example, if a person is deciding whether to approach a potentially dangerous situation, the amygdala helps determine if the fear response is strong enough to avoid that situation. Next comes the basal ganglia. This group of structures is involved in the decision-making process, especially with habits and automatic decisions. The basal ganglia contributes to the motor responses associated with decisions, and they are involved in forming and executing actions based on past experiences and learned behavior. The fifth brain region involved in decision making is the anterior cingulate cortex, or ACC, which plays a role in conflict resolution and error detection. It is involved when people experience a dilemma or when there is a conflict between potential choices. The ACC helps resolve this by weighing the options more carefully, leading to better decision outcomes. Lastly, insula is involved in decision making, where it processes the bodily sensations and emotions, and it helps link these bodily sensations into decision making. It is especially important in making decisions based on internal bodily states, as in when deciding whether to engage in activities that may involve risk or discomfort. Now, let's look at the LLM models. In these models, there is actual no decision making as we know it involved. They, for example, operate based on patterns learned from very, very large data sets. LLMs process information and generate text responses by predicting what would logically follow from the input, but in actuality, they do not make decisions as we do as humans. Instead, LLMs simply apply learned probabilities to arrive at responses without any evaluations of rewards, long-term consequences, or emotions. They don't weigh options, for instance, or consider personal values, goals, or ethical implications when choosing a response. For example, if an LLM were asked to make a recommendation, it wouldn't be able to take into account the emotional impact or long-term outcomes of the choice. Its response would merely be based on the likelihood of certain words or phrases being appropriate according to the input it received based on past data they were trained within. This is a stark contrast to human decision making, where complex reasoning and emotions are blended to shape the final decisions that we humans make. Let's look at AGIs, aka the next generation of AIs. How would decision making potentially look in AGIs? For an AGI to potentially emulate human-like decision making, it would need to simulate the processes that occur in the brain's decision-making regions. AGI would need to consider multiple factors such as emotional input from the equivalent, for example, of the amygdala and insula in AGI. It would also need to include long-term consequences, weighing risks and rewards, like in PFC and OFC within the brain regions. It would also need to be able to think about conflict resolution using mechanics similar to ACC's brain regions. And lastly, it would need to look at context awareness that integrates social, cultural, or emotional. Additionally, these AGI or next generation AIs would need to have some sort of moral reasoning built into their decision-making processes, akin to how the human brain uses past experiences, their values, and societal norms when making ethical choices in their decision making. By integrating emotional intelligence, for example, adaptive learning, and goal-driven behavior into decision making, these potential AGIs could be much more capable of making decisions in complex, unpredictable environments, something that current LLMs are not equipped. In other words, decision making is a defining characteristic of the human intelligence, deeply tied to both cognitive and emotional processes in the brain. The integration of decision-making abilities into potential future AGI would be a key differentiator from current LLMs, allowing for more flexible, adaptive, and contextually aware behavior. As research into AGI progresses, mimicking the way in which the brain processes decision-making may be one of the most challenging yet essential components. While we discuss the brain regions involved in decision making in this video, for the next video, we'll still be looking at decision making, but at a brain waves level. Which brain waves are involved, aka the neural oscillation within the brain, and also the reason these topics are extremely important to discuss is that there are potentially, the way we discuss it, at least in this channel, ways in which the way in which the human brain is able to make decision could be potentially incorporated in potential future of AGI. Hence, these discussions are extremely important. Thanks all of you for watching and listening and commenting. I really love your comments. If you have any questions or comments, definitely feel free to add, and feel free to subscribe as well if you're not subscribed yet. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks again. Bye.